r/AskReddit by Reddit and chill. What's a tradition that people know that is slowly fading away? Caroling at Christmas. I've never seen it, but yet it's still portrayed in movies TV. I went caroling with some friends back in, maybe 1991. It was weirdly anachronistic and uncomfortable for everyone involved even then, much less 26 years later. It's never been comfortable. We had carolers come to our door in the 80s and it was like, I have to sort of stand here for the whole song. Do we tip them? What do we do? The song says you're supposed to give them figgy pudding and they won't go until they get some. This all sounds like a huge scam, honestly. The small talk you would have with someone on a landline while you both waited for the person you actually called to talk to came to the phone. Shannon just got out of the shower. She'll be down in a minute. Thanks, Mrs. Weber. So how's school? Good. Are you reading Raisin in the Sun? Too? Yup. It's a good play. I always liked that one. Yep. It's really go. Oh. Here's Shannon. Thanks, Mrs. Hey, what's up? Oh hey. That's so depressingly accurate. Why depressing? My dance instructor told me that in her home country it's traditional for people to go around on New Year's Day with a goat dressed in human clothing and carol door to door. And when they come caroling at your house you are supposed to feed the goat something like maybe a cabbage. Unclear if an entire cabbage or just like some cabbage. And if you do it will ensure you'll have good luck financially in the upcoming year. She says this tradition is dying out. I can't imagine why. Edit. Wow, this blew up. I'm kind of amazed at the number of different country guesses here, especially Wales with the horse head. To end the mystery, she's from a tiny village in Belarus. First question. Why a goat? Second question. Why is it dressed in human clothes? LOL. Third question. Where is this? This sounds fun. I would add this to my New Year's celebrations of eating 12 grapes, carrying money in my pockets, running around with luggage. Probably from Rolf's home country. Writing postcards to people while on holiday. I went on a European trip last fall. My friend told me I collect postcards. Get me a postcard. You can even mail it when you get home. I don't care, so I bought her a postcard. It's still sitting on my dresser over a year later, unaddressed. For God's sake. I've been to her home since then. I am a failure. Edit. Thanks to all of you wonderful people offering to send postcards. I'm not 100% certain if she collects postcards from around the world, or postcards from her friends from around the world, but I will look into this. If it's the latter, I'll see about getting an address and PMing. But the outpouring of generosity is pretty amazing. Keep being great. Reddit. Edit 2. Have conferred with the woman of the hour, and she was a bit taken aback but gave a yes, please, when I asked if she wanted postcards from all of you lovely people. I think that I have PM'd everyone who expressed interest in sending one, but if I missed you, or you're seeing this after my edit, and want to send a grateful 30-something a postcard, feel free to PM me, though I'll be going to sleep soon. Again I say, thanks for being awesome, Reddit. I love doing this, especially to my little nieces. They get so excited getting mail addressed to them, and I always choose ones that are cute like animals. When I was in South Africa, I love getting mail, even bills, although I get sad after I open them. Working your entire career for the same organization. My dad, almost 60, recently lost the job he had since he was 18. The head of the company invested all of the company's money in bad investments, lost everything, and told everyone they had 2 months left. My dad has never worked for another company, hasn't interviewed or updated his resume since he was 18, and is now at a loss for what to do. He had about 10 years to retirement, and now he has to job hunt for a position that won't mind hiring a 60-year-old man who has only ever held one job. It makes me incredibly sad. I would have no idea what to do in his position. Yeah, but that is going away as a result of companies treating their workers much harder. I had a chat with few of 50-year-olds that recently went on job seeking. Apparently their companies used to give them yearly raises and bonuses and selection of benefits, and they would take in employee feedback with certain level of confidentiality, but about 10-15 years ago they slowly stopped doing all of those, and if you complain they start advertising for your job. Apparently they generally noticed this happening when new management was introduced and the original crew retired. the modern work environment is toxic. Carving a turnip to make a neepy lantern on Halloween used to be the norm in Scotland and Ireland. Pumpkins aren't even a native species here, but now it's all pumpkins, and me with my shite little smelly lantern. Oh, one of my roommates carved a turnip this year and I thought they did it because they were just trying to be a quirky hipster. Still fits the bill for quirky hipster, maybe even more so because he can be like, oh yeah, it's a Scottish tradition. But the English whitewashed the whole thing with pumpkins and I just can't support the imperial destruction of culture. Saying, it doesn't agree with me when declining a food. It's a fine old custom my grandparents used to use when they were offered bean dishes or anything else that didn't sit well with their digestion. Didn't get into gory details. Didn't pretend at a medical diagnosis they didn't have. That's a tradition worth reviving. It's now shifted to the more colloquial it makes my butt throw up. Some people don't take no for an answer. They keep pressing, come on, this is so good. Stop being picky. I bet you have never had it like this. It gets to the point where you have to say no. It makes me projectile vomit and gives me horrible diarrhea. My mother has ulcerative colitis and enjoys going into detail about it, especially to strangers, especially to waiters. It drives me crazy. Dropping by someone's place to visit just because you were in the area. Edit. Okay, I also wouldn't want someone coming over for a couple hours unannounced either, but just stopping by to say hi for like 10 minutes because you haven't seen each other in a while is nice to me. I would be glad that they thought of me enough to want to actually see me. Maybe that's just because I'm lonely and have no friends, lol, everyone's different. I started doing that to a couple of my friends, and it's been great. If they're working or busy, whatever, I go about my day, but it sparked some random adventures, so I'll keep doing it. Yep, still do this. We just show up at each other's houses. I usually show up at my old house where my mates still live. It's accepted that if someone is home we'll come in, grab a beer and chill out. Might go get lunch, or might just stay at home watching TV. Some days we'll have 20 people rock up because 5 went hey let's go to house, and another group of 4 will make the same idea, and so on. Man, having a social life sounds like fun. Print photography. Growing up we had boxes filled to the brim with random photos. Now that everything has moved to smartphones and Facebook, you don't see that anymore. I highly recommend keeping a scrapbook. I print out 10-12 of my best photos every year on New Year's Eve and add them to a book. Now I have a nice book that goes back 6-7 years. I really should do this. I have some shots that I've managed to get that I just love, and I've dabbled with the thought of printing them on canvas, but maybe this is more manageable. Hanging mistletoe and expecting people to kiss if they stand underneath it. Yeah, that would be viewed as very creepy. Make no mistake, it was creepy back in the day. My grandmother told stories about the dudes in the office chasing them around with the mistletoe and peer pressuring the girls into giving them a kiss. It was like a seasonal variation of the daily game of grab ass. I gotta have that slap ass man. Please, one for the road. Small languages and oral traditions like my own. Icelandic. I'd actually learn Icelandic if I knew of a good website to learn it from. We don't even have a good online dictionary for ourselves. I really don't want Cajun French to die out. Writing in cursive. When I was in middle school, they told me I'd be using it for everything in life afterwards. High school wouldn't even grade my papers if I wrote in print. Outside of writing my name, I never used it again. Not once. A lot of the time in high school and college they wouldn't even accept things if they weren't typed. I didn't turn in a single handwritten paper in college, other than a paper written during a test. I don't think I even turned in handwritten papers in high school. Papers are mostly digital these days because teachers run them through a database to make sure it's not plagiarized. Actually setting out time to sit and watch a TV show when it airs. For me anyway, I usually just catch up online when I find the time. I don't even know what time my favorite shows are aired anymore. I never watch TV Live anymore because there's too many commercials, except Game of Thrones because HBO doesn't have commercials. I record everything on a PVR and will delay starting a show by at least half an hour just so I can skip through all the commercials as I watch. Paying bills with checks. This will show how old I am. Back in the day you carried around a checkbook with a ledger in it and there was usually a slot for a pen. You had to go inside the bank and ask a teller for a statement and they would print a receipt showing how much money you had. That became the basis for your ledger. When you bought groceries or whatever you had to deduct it, so you always saw people doing math at checkout writing down their expenses. And then you had your new balance. You also wrote the check number in the ledger and what it was for. Things like paychecks were actual physical checks that were given to you, usually on a Friday, and then you had to sign it and take it to the bank and wait in the line of literally everyone else who had just gotten paid to deposit your paycheck. If your bank didn't have an ATM, then you had to get cash inside for the weekend. Didn't have cash? Tough shit. At the end of the month the bank would physically mail you all the checks that had cleared and you would set them out on the dining room table and tick them off from your ledger and reconcile your balance to what the bank said you had. The old skill that is now irrelevant known as balancing a checkbook today is way better. Except county taxes. No, I'm not paying an extra 3% to pay online. Government services that don't have to modernize aren't. State smog check stations won't even take cards. Usually governments collect the surcharge because they are legally required to collect exactly XX.014 inches or whatever, and not XX.014, X.97 inches or whatever the credit card company surcharges. Private businesses can eat the 3% for the convenience, but taxes and government fees are set by law, so they can't. Movie rental night. When I was a kid, almost every Friday night we'd go to the movie rental store. It was a whole experience. Checking out the new releases, looking through the sci-fi or action section to see if there's an old movie you hadn't seen, maybe rent a video game. The whole store smelled like a theater because they usually had free popcorn. If you were lucky, maybe get some movie theater type candy. I'm pretty sure that doesn't really exist anymore. Sure, you can rent a movie on Amazon or Redbox, or browse Netflix for 20 minutes, but it's not the same. There was a Blockbuster near my house until around 4 years ago. It was always super empty, but I went every Friday with my grandma. I didn't even realize that Blockbuster had basically died years before that until the one near my house shut down. If a Blockbuster / movie rental place reopened near me, I'd probably still go just for old time's sake. Starting the Christmas hype after Thanksgiving. That's been going on for decades. Now, however, I see larger Christmas aisles than Halloween ones in the weeks leading up to Halloween, and that's really bugging me. I went into a Walmart in August looking for a Switch. They had all the fake Christmas trees up already. August? Okay, so here is the deal. When you work retail and have to stock, your warehouse space isn't infinite. You don't get to order Christmas stuff. It's all shipped to you by corporate based on their sales numbers all of the previous years, from your store and your area. So in short, that shit has to go somewhere. You can't store it in the back forever, because then you don't have room for anything else. So it goes on the sales floor. It's that simple. They don't know or care if you will buy stuff at that point. They just have it, and they have no room to store it, so it goes on the floor. Source. Worked retail for 5 years and had a GF who was a manager of a store for longer than that. They don't like it any more than you. Receiving a daily, or weekly for that matter, newspaper. This one makes me sad. My grandpa is 83 and reads the paper every morning. Every time he visits he always has me drive him to the store to get one. I always pick a different store so I can drive him around different parts of town and he can see everything. It's a very small activity that I find so much joy in. It's less and less necessary. It's annoying that publications are making digital plus print cheaper than digital only. It's because they get more in ad revenue from the physical copy than it costs to print it, so it's advantageous for them to distribute it. I dunno. Actually RSVPing when someone invites you to something? This is a good one. Hey jerks, I need to know how much food to buy. You're adults. Can you please figure your life out and tell me if you can come or not? They probably will say yes out of kindness but end up no showing up. It's this stupid culture now that's taken over. Yep, people are so deathly afraid of saying no or offending you. They will say yes, then totally screw you over instead. Lifesavers candy booklets in your stocking. I still get one from mom every year. Unfortunately, there's no more butter rum. But still, Traditional stocking stuffer since at least 1972. Eating at the table. I held a party for my son this past weekend, and the amount of 10-11-year-olds who couldn't eat at a table was shocking. You mean they don't know how to eat at a table? Where exactly do they eat then? In front of the TV, I assume? Then what do they do at school? Seems odd. In my Norwegian American family, the tradition of making our own lefse for the holidays is fading fast. My wife still does it, but our kids have little interest in making it. They love eating it, however, but most store-bought is more like potato flatbread. It is so thick, we'll be sad to see it go. Northern Minnesotan here. My family made lefse last week. I'm looking forward to lutefisk on Sunday. LOL, looking forward to lutefisk. That's, I know you're making this up. When meeting up with people, you used to have to say, okay, meet me by the tree outside of X at 8:30. If they didn't show, you went on without them and they caught up later. I guess it isn't technically a tradition, but with smartphones you never lose your friends. Seems like lately, smartphones are the only way I'll lose my friends. I'll be sitting there having a conversation with some friends and the next thing I know, everyone is on their phones doing something for the next 20 minutes. Root beer floats. We can't allow this one to die. Last I checked, Red Robin has free refills on root beer floats, which I need to go take advantage of before they realize how much money they stand to lose when I get there. Dressing up. Most businesses are doing away with formal attire. People show up to first dates in street clothes, and even some churches are going casual. I was reading recently that a lot of tailors are going out of business because no one buys fitted suits anymore, and on a personal level I can tell you that in my profession, academia, I dress up more formally than a lot of my colleagues do when I show up to class in jeans, tennis shoes and button-down shirts. The only way to tell the difference between students and professors now is by age. A lot of people lament the disappearance of formal attire, but personally I welcome it and am happy to see these standards going away. I love dressing up occasionally, but I would hate it if I had to do it every day. I work in the tech industry and suiting up is virtually non-existent among my co-workers. If I see a suited up person in the building, I just assume it's an interviewee or some older higher level executive. I'm just waiting for shorts to become normal to wear during the summer months. Even some churches are going casual. Growing up in Wisconsin during the 90s and zeros, I can tell you firsthand that during football season, every church was casual if you were wearing green and gold. This is my dress Favre jersey. Defragging your hard drive. SSD will eventually replace all spinners. Emphasis on eventually, though, as much as I love SSDs, traditional hard drives still provide the highest capacity for the lowest price. My 4TB green drive is slow as balls, but it holds all my useless crap super well, and my 500GB SSD is strictly for gaming and more intensive programs. Job opportunities for middle class income. Or just middle class incomes being able to support a happy and fulfilling life. The whole American dream of buying a house, popping out a couple of kids, and eventually retiring at 65 is pretty much a pipe dream at an actual middle class income level. Forget it if you ever want to splurge for a luxury. Christmas bonuses. Now you're lucky to even have a job. Now you're lucky to even get a 1-year subscription to the Jelly of the Month Club. I've noticed people no longer introduce their friends. Now in groups, strangers are forced to introduce themselves rather than be introduced by a common friend. This is both stressful and inefficient. I'm a compulsive introducer. If there's even a slight doubt someone doesn't know someone else, I'll introduce them. Human sacrifice. Am I a bad person for keeping the gods happy and get a good yearly harvest? Presentation watches. Many companies used to present their long-term employees with gold watches when they retired. It would be inscribed with the employee's name, the company name, and number of years of service. Traditionally, you'd have to work a really long time to merit one, like 30-40 years. You can still buy them on eBay, but employers stopped shelling out for stuff like a long time ago. And anyway, nobody works long enough at one company to earn one. Regular family dinners. Pretty sure this is a family by family basis. I do it. I even bring my family to my parents once a week. I have friends that do it 20 years ago, as a Gen Z out of college, every job had the same 10 holidays, and I took them as gospel. We do not work on Thanksgiving Day, and yet, here we are. Sending thank you cards after receiving gifts from someone. Seems like less Christmas lights every year around here. Remembering Dre. Going to church. Manners. To all the a-hole parents that take their kids to any sit-down restaurant and slap tablets down in front of their kids with the volume cranked up so the whole restaurant gets to listen to 3 different cartoons at the same time you suck and your kids will end up socially retarded. Freaking. Although it's only known in the over 30 crowd at this point, it's definitely never going to re-emerge though since the technology it relies on is decades obsolete. The too long didn't read is that before digital phone systems the phone network was entirely controlled via tones at various frequencies. The exact same sort you hear when you dial numbers on a landline touch-tone phone, if you ever have. That is. People reverse engineered the system and built all sorts of little machines called boxes that would make it do weird things via tone manipulation. Everything from setting up party lines and getting free long distance to turning phones into one-way listening devices. Screwing with the phone system in this way was called freaking. There was even one box design someone hypothesized called the Blotto box which would absolutely destroy the phone system in its entirety via very high voltage. And it was always funny to see angry freaker outcasts threaten to build one. As far as I know, nobody ever actually followed through. Saying hi to little kids. It used to be you could make faces and make a kid laugh and not worry about some paranoid parent worrying about child molesters. People not knowing what the word tradition means. Being able to pay off student loans. Ha 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 ha. Letter writing. I worked in an archive for a couple of years, writing finding aids for Civil War letters. I cringe thinking how people are going to have to archive emails and social media posts instead of handwritten letters to loved ones. Back when my brother and I were kids, my parents used to observe the time-honored holiday tradition of forcing the whole family to don itchy sweaters, dragging us out to a department store, then surrendering us to the cryptic directions offered by a guy who looked remarkably similar to Mr. Clark from Stranger Things. That fellow would snap a half-dozen photographs, and a day or two later, my mother and father would look over the finished portraits, trying to decide which of them to send out with our Christmas cards. There was always something wrong with the picture they chose, and it was usually my fault, but Photoshop didn't exist in those days, so they had to make do with the best option out of several bad ones. Anyway, nowadays, Christmas cards seem to be a thing of the past, and the idea that someone could take an entire day to plan and post for a single snapshot sounds ludicrous to most people. There are still folks who observe the traditions in one form or another, of course. But this age of omnipresent social media and cameras in every pocket has rendered the whole thing unnecessary. Along similar lines, the only people to whom I still write thank you letters are my grandparents. And even then, the process of writing those 2 short paragraphs by hand makes my fingers hurt. I still wear the itchy sweater to family gatherings, though. Too long didn't read. Holiday portraits, Christmas cards, and thank you letters. Ducking like and subscribe.